Hi guys, it's Emily from MeBack here. I wanted to share with you today, my story and how, I've got to this place. So I guess I need to start back when I was actually just shy of my 21st birthday. And, I was at university and, I was having a really good time in life. Everything was pretty normal, and I went out on a Sunday evening with my boyfriend at the time, and I remember it being a really beautiful sunny day, and yeah, everything was just normal. And then I went home the next morning, and I'd left my mobile phone back home because back then I guess mobile phones weren't so essential. And I had about 6 or 7 missed calls on my phone, which I thought was quite strange. I then called back one of the numbers, and it was actually a hospital in the town where my dad lived. And still nothing clicked. I didn't think anything of it. I thought, oh, they've made a mistake calling me. The nurse said to me that I'd have to wait until the doctor could get on the line, and I thought that was a bit strange. And I'm still thinking to myself, oh, maybe they've just switched up some test results or something like that. And then she sort of started asking me some questions about my name and who my dad was, and then I started to get a bit worried, and I was sort of saying to her, what's happened? And she said, we need to wait until the doctor gets here. And then she said to me, are you sitting down? And as soon as she said that, I just knew something horrible had happened. And then the doctor got on the line and told me that my dad had passed away. And yeah, everything after that is a pretty big blur, to be honest. I do remember lying down on the bed and just completely beside myself, basically. And then somehow I managed to, at the time I was living on like a university dorm, and somehow I managed to get myself down to one of my friend's rooms, and just the utter disbelief, like I genuinely was in so much shock. I couldn't believe that this was happening. In the days and the months and the years that followed, it's been a really long and at times very tough journey through grief and coming back to, I guess, who I am and incorporating losing my dad into my story. So basically, I guess I started out in those first few weeks and months of grief trying to get some help, and it's always a rude shock when you realize that everyone in your family is going through the grief, and maybe your friends aren't as equipped to help you as you thought they might have been. So I tried to seek out anything, books, online resources, counselors, everything like that, and I was really hitting a lot of brick walls. I finally came across a grief counsellor who agreed to see me. He was actually attached to a hospice, so he was normally talking to people about losing their elderly loved ones, and I begged him if I could come and see him. And that really helped in the early days, because initially I didn't even know what grief was. I remember, of course I had a vague idea of what it was, but I really had to look it up and try and understand what this thing was that was suddenly now 150% of my life, basically. So then many years followed where I really didn't have the skills or the resources to cope with knowing how to get through losing my dad. And I saw so many bad psychologists. I, probably just ignored it for a long time. I really didn't know what else to do, and sort of started to fall apart. That coping mechanism didn't really last past, I guess, me being about 25, and I'd got my dream job that I'd been working for a long time, and but I wasn't happy. I felt very empty inside, and I really had trouble connecting with other people because I hadn't really accepted that this was a part of my life. Finally found a psychologist that was really able to help, and actually there was a book that I read as well, which we'll put the link below, and the book was really a turning point, as was meeting that psychologist at the time. And it was the first time where I'd sort of really been able, I think, to find the help that I needed and commit to going through the hard stuff. So none of that was easy, and then going through the grief that I'd probably buried before was just as hard as not going through the grief, unfortunately. Yeah, but I guess by the end of my 20s, I sort of came out the other side and was able to get MeBack, which is, you know, a big part of the reason why Tim and I have started this channel. And to me, that means not the me that I was before my dad died or the me that I was going through the grief process. It's about really incorporating the story of your grief into who you are and making that a whole. I really did feel like at the time when my dad passed away that my life had kind of split in two, and that there was sort of the me that would have been going on if my dad hadn't died, and the me that was going on because my dad did die. And I didn't see either of them as real versions of me, if that makes sense. So it took a lot of years for me to merge sort of those two stories together, and now I feel like, you know, I've got a place for my dad in my heart and he'll always be a part of me, and it doesn't feel like something that's separate to me. Yeah, so that's, I guess, a little bit about my story. We'd love to hear about your stories. One of the big reasons we started this channel was to hear, I guess, give a place for people to share their stories, because we know how important it is to really, I guess, own your grief and be able to tell your own story, because I think it's not, we all feel like it's a story that nobody wants to hear because it's sad or it brings up bad memories and things like that, but it's really, really, really important to share the story, because that's when it starts to, I guess, become part of who you are, and then you're able to sort of find a place for it and keep living your life. So we'd love to hear your story. We know it takes courage and yeah, being brave, but we'd really encourage you to share, and we'd love to hear more. Thanks so much.